How's it going, folks? I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and welcome back to the random video blog where every single Friday I give my rambling thoughts in the wrestling world, share some stories, etc., etc. So this week I just came up with this topic. I was originally going to do it a couple weeks from now, in a couple weeks, but there's been a huge buzz this week over a lot of people that the fans want to see return to the WWE. WWE put out a poll on Monday on their website, WWE.com. Voting for, I think the poll said something like, who would you not mark out? That's basically in how many words they said it in. Who would you get the most excited to see back in WWE? And it listed a bunch of people, most of whom you'll see on this list. I love the list because all the people that they listed, it was like maybe 6 or 7 people. I think almost all of them are on this list. So today I thought it'd be fitting if I ran down my top 5 people that I would love to see return to the WWE. Now, just a little disclaimer here, this list is not going to include people like some honorable mentions here that I probably left out, like a John Morrison or a Mr. Kennedy or a Carlito, who did return to WWE a couple years ago for that one-off of the Hall of Fame and WrestleMania 30 weekend. MVP. Like, all those kind of guys are mid-carders at best, and I don't ever really see them coming back. Maybe John Morrison is the most likely out of all those people I just listed, but I would like to see them back. I would mark out. It would be cool. I just don't really see it happening, considering all those guys I just listed are probably in their late 30s, early 40s. So I'm not really holding out hope for any of those people. The following people I'm going to list are bigger names and are much more likely to come back. So just some honorable mentions to John Morrison, Mr. Kennedy, MVP, Carlito, all those guys from like the Ruthless Aggression mid-2000s era, who will probably never make a comeback because they're not big enough names, but if they ever made a one-off in the Rumble, I would mark out, or a Shelton Benjamin for that matter as well. So coming in at number 5 is none other than Shane McMahon. Now, of course, when I make my list of people that I want to see come back to WWE, he is never really in my top 3. He's kind of one that goes under the radar because I was never the biggest Shane McMahon fan at that time. Now, before you just spew all hate on me, remember I started watching in 2008, early 08, so he was hardly a prominent figure on the show from that point until he left the company in very early 2010. His final appearance on WWE TV came in May of 2009. So I was only around, when I was watching, he was only around for about a year or so. So he didn't really do as much as what he did during the Attitude Era when he was a regular. He was competing on pay-per-views, and the guy was fucking awesome because it's Shane McMahon. And, just watching old pay-per-views back on the network, including SummerSlam and Unforgiven recently, all of which I'm reviewing for WrestleRant, so cheap plug there. But, watching those old pay-per-views back and seeing what he's capable of in the ring, it's incredible. The guy was absolutely amazing as a performer, as an on-air character. I loved him so much, just watching him on the old archived content. So he's a guy that I would love to see come back for either a one-off, and he has to at some point. He's the boss. He's the son of the boss, Vince McMahon. He's never going to run the company. That's Triple H. He's pretty much next in line along with Stephanie. And I know he's doing other stuff right now. I know he was interviewed maybe about a year or so ago, maybe right before WrestleMania 30. I remember reading some interview saying, someone asking him if he's ever going to make a comeback to the company. He said maybe at some point down the line. He's definitely not going to rule it out, and I feel like he's probably the most likely out of all the people on the list, considering, like I said, there's no bad blood between him and the company because he's the boss's son. He's just busy with other endeavors at the moment. But if I ever heard, here comes the money, here we go, money talks, here comes the money, like if I ever heard that, I would go nuts. And I was really hoping they would bring him in as like a one-off GM last year when the Authority was gone. Sadly, that never really came to be, and I know a lot of people are hoping that he would get involved in the Authority stuff and kind of feud with Triple H. Don't really see that happening, but it would be great to see him come back, if only for a one-off at some point down the line. So coming in at number 4 on my list is none other than Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner. And I know that's the way that Jim Ross pronounces Stone Cold, but I think Mike Tenay said that like the first time I ever saw Scott Steiner in TNA. Now, of course, like I said, I've been watching WWE, or wrestling rather, just on the whole, since April of 2008. So I've never seen Scott Steiner in WWE. I'd maybe rank Shane over Scott, and Scott Steiner isn't really one of my favorite wrestlers. And he was actually included on that poll of people people WWE may considering bringing back, or just one more match or whatever. I know he was on a list last year when they made a list of people like who they want to see one more match with, and Scott Steiner was on that list. Again, not my favorite wrestler of all time, so why would I want to see him back? The guy was sick. He was awesome, just for the brief time that he was with the company from 02 to 2004. I know he was with the company before that, had a long tenure in TNA and in WCW and all these other promotions. In WWE, I mean, he was never the greatest wrestler. I would never ever want to see him in like a top tier match with like Triple H again, like we saw in 2003. The guy as a wrestler sucked. I mean, he was impressive in spurts, but on the whole, though, he was really not that good. But just his mic skills, his promos alone were entertaining as hell. The stuff that he did in TNA in his final few years there was pretty entertaining. So I would love to see him back, if only just to hear "holler if you hear me" and hear the sirens go off. It'd be great. And I was hoping we would get a one-off appearance from Steiner last year. No, I think it was 2 years ago when Ryback was coming out with the ambulance and you would hear the siren, and it sounded like Scott Steiner was coming back, but he wasn't. So it's unfortunate, but still, I think he's another guy that I would love to see back in the good graces of WWE at some point. Not as likely, because I read a report not too long ago. I mean, these are all just random sources. But I remember reading something that he did in an interview a couple months ago saying that he turned down a Legends deal from WWE. So I guess they probably weren't paying him that much if he was going to come in, so it kind of sucks. But that's not stopped people from coming back before. I mean, we've seen people like the Ultimate Warrior return, Bret Hart, Bruno Sammartino, and that's not the last time I'll be making those references. I'll get back to that towards the end of the video, especially with this next person on the list. But it's always possible. I mean, again, I would not like to see him do an RVD contract or a Jericho deal or where he like works Raws and SmackDowns, because again, I don't really care to see him as a wrestler. As like a one-off appearance in the Rumble, I would mark the fuck out. Or just one more Steiner promo, you know. So he won't be back in the company anytime soon, I imagine, because like I said, he turned down a Legends deal because he probably makes more money doing indie appearances and stuff. I was actually able to see him at that Legends of Wrestling show that I went to in June of this year. So that was pretty cool, and I was able to hear his WWE music, but still, he's another guy I would like to see back. Again, just for one more appearance in WWE at some point. Coming in at number 3 here, and people are just going to call me crazy for it, is none other than T-shirt reference CM Punk. And also notice the USA colored theme shirts for CM Punk. Notice I didn't just wear the CM Punk shirt for this video. I mean, today's 9/11, so remembering those that were affected, let me just throw that out there as well, that were affected in the terrible tragedy 14 years ago today, or 13 years ago today. What the fuck? 14 years ago. I can't even do math. It's 2015. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there as well. But anyway, CM Punk. Like a lot of people are going to call me crazy for this one. I've had people call me crazy on this in the past. In regards to this in the past, that I do genuinely feel like CM Punk will be back in WWE at some point. Now, I am not saying he'll be back next week. He won't be back next month. And anyone who knows me knows I've said this like a million times before. He won't be back next year. He will be back at some point. Whether it's WrestleMania 33 or WrestleMania 50, he'll be back. And not even necessarily in an in-ring role. I've said before, I think he might be back at least for a Hall of Fame induction. Because, people always say he lost his passion for the business. I just feel like he was burned out. And he loves wrestling so much. Maybe not necessarily WWE. And he has said before that he's not going to want to return. He has no plans to return. And he's doing UFC. So thankfully, the fact that he's with that company, he's with UFC for the next several years, presumably kind of quells, puts to rest any rumors of him coming back at any point in the near future. Therefore, people won't be chanting CM Punk at shows, which is great. But anyway, though, CM Punk, aside from William Regal, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I just need to see him back. I need to hear Cult of Personality one more time. He never got that one more final match in the Rumble. It was not that great of a performance for him, so I would like to see him back at least for one more match. And if that's not possible, just then for a Hall of Fame induction. But I've said on the record before, I said immediately after he left a year and a half ago that he will be back in WWE at some point. Not necessarily any point in the next few years, but at WrestleMania 50, why not? I think CM Punk especially maybe, and I know his heat lies with Triple H, who will be taking over the company after Vince passes away, which hopefully isn't anytime soon. But, still, even after Vince is gone, I don't think that's going to change anything between the bad blood between him and Punk, but time heals all wounds, of course, so I feel like he will be back, at least at some point. I'm still not even holding out hope. I'm not even like one of those people that are like, oh, Punk will be back for WrestleMania 33 or WrestleMania 32. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he will be back, but not any point soon. But CM Punk would love to see him back in WWE. Coming in at number 2, kind of a split choice here, but it's kind of one or the other. Jeff Hardy / the Hardy Boys. Now, I would love to see Matt Hardy back in WWE on his own. I don't think he's a big enough name as big of a Matt Hardy fan as I am. I just don't think they'd bring him back on his own to work like a Jericho-like schedule. I don't think he was that big of a name. But if they brought him back as part of the Hardy Boys or just brought Jeff Hardy back on his own, because that guy is immensely popular, even to this day. And WWE, no pun intended, will always do what is best for business. They say that on TV, but it's absolutely true. They will definitely do what's best for business. And I do think, genuinely, that Jeff Hardy is best for business. The guy is so popular even to this day. That I feel like, much like the next person on this list, why have him work work live events and all that other shit? That's ridiculous. The guy's body is so beat up. They know that. He was with the company for as long as he was. And not to blame it on WWE. It's Jeff's, he's the one that takes the risks, so he really has no one to blame but himself. But it would be foolish to bring him in under a live event deal where he works all the time like a full member of the roster, a member of the full active roster. Why would you do that, to work a full schedule? The guy's so beat up, it's just not necessary. But I believe when his TNA deal wraps up in January or whatever it is, he should be back in WWE. I mean, I know he's gone on the record in the past and saying that he wants to finish up his career there, and that it doesn't really matter if it's 15 years down the line, that he probably will be back at some point, or he wants to be back. And he's been clean for years now, so I feel like that won't be really an issue. And they brought him back before, back in 06, and he got himself suspended a few times. But like I said, if he's best for business, then they'll bring him back. And I know Jeff Hardy, like I said 15 years maybe from now, but I don't know about 15 years, Jeff. I feel like he'll be back in the next 2 to 3 years if everything works out and TNA just, if TNA either goes to the wayside or they don't re-sign him, which I feel like he's done everything there is to do in TNA and it's time to come back to WWE, either just by himself or especially with the Hardy Boys, now that the Dudley Boys are back and Edge and Christian have been here, just from that one backstage segment alone that we saw on Raw this past week with those two teams, we need to see the Hardys back in the equation. They were the one team in the news this week in regards to people like, I can't wait to see the Hardys back. Like, I've just been in a Hardy high all week long, no pun intended, because of that one backstage segment from Raw. So the Hardy Boys coming in at number 2. And then finally, at number 1, should really come as no surprise to anyone who has known me for a while now. It's on my Bleacher Report profile, but Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, the American Hero, has not been in WWE for over 9 years. And I know he was in talks with the company to come back late last year, and we really have not gotten the full story on that. Triple H and Vince, it's not even that they've declined to comment. No one has really asked them about it. It's not like Stone Cold asked Vince or Triple H about it during either of his podcasts, which I feel like he should have. Not that it's a really pressing issue, but it would have been cool to hear him talk about it. But Kurt Angle, another guy that I feel like would be best for business. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I love Batista. I love Rob Van Dam. I love Jericho. But all of them are on the same level, if not lower, than Kurt Angle. I feel like Kurt Angle would be a huge moneymaker for WWE if he were to come back. And even if not, just the matches he can get, they can get out of him. To have him work a full schedule, much like Jeff Hardy, but to even a bigger extent, because his body is even more beat up than Jeff Hardy's, and he can hardly work as it is. The guy's really winding down his career. Jeff Hardy can go another couple more years. Kurt Angle is almost done. And he just said in an interview the other day that when his current contract with TNA wraps up, that he does not plan on re-signing with them. He doesn't plan to go to WWE. Probably because they don't want him right now, which is fucking asinine, but he feels like he needs to take a break from wrestling. But he said break. He did not say retire. He just said he'll take a break for a little while. And I see no reason why WWE can't bring him in. Like I said, I feel like he's a bigger name than all the other people I mentioned, a Batista, a Rob Van Dam. He had an amazing career in WWE, especially in TNA too. I mean, people shit on TNA, I shit on TNA, but he had a great career. He had a great career in TNA. He's done everything there is to do. He's held the world title a number of times. He's faced everyone there is to face. In WWE, there's a wide variety of opponents he can go up against. And of all the people that he can go up against in WWE, just look at the possibilities, including Daniel Bryan, who he has said in the past on his blog and stuff that he would love to face in just a match or his final match or whatever. And even Daniel Bryan has said in other interviews, I want to face Kurt Angle. So they really want they both of them want to face each other, which is awesome. So, Daniel Bryan isn't a big enough name where he's going to be able to pull the strings backstage and get him back with the company. But still, Kurt Angle, I mean, that's where he made his home in WWE from 1999 to 2006 for 7 years. He's now been with TNA for longer than that, which is just crazy to think about. But still, I mean, WWE is his home at the end of the day, and I need to see Kurt Angle back in WWE. You know, again, much like with CM Punk, I do want to see Angle work one more match, much like Punk. But if he can't, or if he's just completely done by that point, and they don't want to risk it health-wise, that's fine. Just bring him back for a Hall of Fame induction. Just look at the guy's accolades. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that he is a WWE Hall of Fame caliber inductee. So I feel he's absolutely worthy of an induction at some point down the line. So if we can't get one more match out of him, at least get him in the Hall of Fame, bring him back, and just so we can hear his amazing theme song just one more time. Dun 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 dun. I cannot even imagine if they were to wait until like the night after WrestleMania, or if they did it this past year in, I think it was Philly, right? Or Pittsburgh was where the Rumble was the year before, I think. Had they done it one of those 2 years, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. I can't even imagine the reaction that he would have received from those rabid fans that, just went crazy when Batista and Roman Reigns won the Rumble in 2 respective years, in 2014 and 2015 respectively. If Angle came back, even if he lost, who cares? Just the fact that Angle came back would be just amazing. So I think Kurt Angle easily, of all the people that I want to see come back to the company, is my number one. He needs to be back in WWE. I've seen Jeff Hardy in WWE. I've seen Punk in WWE. I've seen Shane in WWE. Not Scott Steiner, but I can live without ever seeing him come back if it doesn't come down to it. But Kurt Angle is the one guy I need to see back in WWE. Would be amazing. So some other honorable mentions I forgot to mention earlier at the start of the video. D'Lo Brown was announced a part of the WWE 2K16 game. It's funny because I actually did see him return to WWE when he came back the first time in 2008 for like about a year or so, not even like 6 months, when they did nothing with him. And it kind of sucks because that was when I first started watching. I had no idea who he was, and now knowing who he is now and just loving his theme song, you're messing with the real deal now. I would love to see D'Lo Brown back in WWE. Goldberg, I know he's one guy a lot of people want to see come back. Maybe it's just because then I wasn't a fan during his era. I mean, I love the Ruthless Aggression era. I just wasn't a fan when he came to WWE. I'm not as big of a Goldberg fan as many people are. I mean, after seeing him but appear at that Legends of Wrestling show that I went to back in June of this year, and after seeing him hit that spear on Scott Steiner, I'm like, wow, I need to see this guy back in the company. I was like on a Goldberg high for about a day or so. I mean, that still doesn't make me want to rank him higher up on this list. Again, if he never came back to the company, I would not be upset, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't mark out. Like if I heard his music and he hasn't been in the company for over 10 years at this point. So if he were to come back to the company for, again, one more match or whatever, it'd be great. I feel like he was not the face of WCW, but for a time he was, for all the success that he brought them during his time on top in the late 90s. And just how popular he still would be with the fans. Greatest wrestler in the world? Absolutely not. I mean, look at his match with the Triple H during his last run. Not the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. But as just a pure excitement factor for one more match, and I feel like he is worth the money for a final match at WrestleMania or something like that, I say do it. Especially for Hall of Fame induction for his WCW work alone. But if we can get one more match out of it, I'm all for it. So finally, guys, just one more note here. It was an issue with the hashtag AskGSM video. I don't know if it's going to be an issue with this video. Hopefully not after I render it. I'm using a completely different program because Windows Movie Maker is not working for whatever reason because I uploaded to Windows 10. Long story. But the audio and the video were out of sync for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because I made it widescreen or whatnot. Hopefully this video does not have that issue. But if it does, I apologize. I'm looking into ways to fix that for upcoming videos, whether it be for hashtag AskGSM or these random video blogs or whatever. So again, I apologize in advance if that is an issue for anyone watching here on YouTube. But that's about it, guys. Thank you for watching. Always appreciate it. Make sure to check me out on Facebook. Hit me up there at facebook.com/grim.justin.matthews. Hit me up on Twitter at WrestleRant. I want to hear what you guys think about who you want to see come back to WWE. Also, hit me up in the comments down below. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Have a great weekend, guys. I'm Graham Justin Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.